In 6 hours on October 24, 1929, Americans lost $14 billion, more than Canada's entire economy. The Great Depression that followed wiped out 5,000 banks and left 2 million people homeless. While history often views the crash as a sudden disaster, the mechanism of the collapse was built months earlier by a single man. Back in the 1920s, America experienced a period of explosive growth. Ford cars were rolling off assembly lines, radios were entering every home, and jazz clubs were packed. To those living through it, this prosperity felt permanent. Charles Mitchell was the head of National City Bank, a financial giant with $2.7 billion in assets. Mitchell saw a massive opportunity in the stock market, which was then a closed club for the wealthy. At the time, less than 1% of Americans owned stocks. Ordinary families simply kept their money in savings accounts or bonds. Mitchell decided to treat corporate stocks like everyday retail products. He opened investment offices inside 69 bank branches across the country. When someone walked in to open a basic savings account, bank staff would immediately pitch them a chance to buy a piece of the American economy. To move these stocks, Mitchell hired dream merchants trained in sales psychology. They targeted social anxieties, telling delivery drivers and secretaries that stock ownership was the only way to become master of your own destiny. Newspaper ads suggested your children would be proud of you for becoming an investor, making stock buying a matter of family pride rather than financial logic. The campaign worked. A mechanic from Detroit invested 6 months of his salary into Ford stock. A teacher from Ohio mortgaged her parents' house to buy Radio Corporation shares. Millions of working families who had never stepped foot on Wall Street poured their life savings into the market. Mitchell's financial democratization funneled the wealth of an uneducated public into a high-risk system. He convinced people that stocks were as safe as bank deposits, luring them into a gamble they did not understand. Mitchell's most dangerous tool was margin lending. This practice allowed the public to buy stocks using borrowed money, with the shares themselves acting as collateral for the loan. This chart shows how margin lending amplifies purchasing power. If you had $100 in cash, the bank would let you put down a 10% deposit and loan you the rest. Suddenly, your $100 could buy a $1,000 block of stock. During a bull market, this math makes people feel like geniuses. If that $1,000 stock block grows by 20%, you make a $200 profit. You've just doubled your original $100 investment in a matter of months. This extreme leverage drove a frenzy of public greed. But this exact mechanism hid a terrifying fragility. For every dollar floating around in the stock market, there was only 10 cents of real money backing it. A tiny drop in share prices could wipe out the investor's initial cash deposit instantly. By early 1929, the Federal Reserve warned that the market was dangerously overheated. When prices started to slip in March, Charles Mitchell publicly defied the central bank. He announced his bank would provide all the liquidity, the ready cash, the market needed to keep the bubble expanding. Margin debt decouples stock prices from actual economic reality. Once 90% of the money in the market is borrowed, the entire structure relies on the assumption that prices will go up forever. The math guarantees a total collapse the moment growth stalls. While the public kept buying, institutional investors saw warning signs. Car sales were falling, and industrial production had slowed. Large players realized that stock prices were rising while the real economy was shrinking. These smart money insiders also knew the central bank would eventually have to raise interest rates to cool the market. Higher rates would make margin loans vastly more expensive, turning the public's debt into a liability that could no longer be serviced. Wall Street giants began a coordinated, quiet exit. To avoid crashing the market before they could get out, they sold their shares in small blocks. They cashed out their profits while retail investors, still believing Mitchell's promises, continued to buy. The avalanche began on October 24th. New York's largest investment funds made a coordinated decision to exit entirely. Prices crawled down, then plunged. A record 13 million shares were sold in a single day, far exceeding what the telephone lines and stock ticker machines could process. This triggered 4 deadly dominoes. First, falling prices led to margin calls, demands from banks for more cash to cover losing bets. Second, people who lacked the cash were forced to sell their stocks, driving prices even lower. Third, banks stopped lending as their collateral evaporated. Finally, the banks that issued these margin loans began to go bankrupt. The immediate physical manifestation of the crash was visible on the streets. As banks that followed Mitchell's example ran out of cash, they locked their doors. Desperate crowds gathered outside, realizing that the dream of easy wealth had taken their future with it. The system Mitchell built successfully transferred the ultimate risk of a market correction away from the elite and directly onto the working class. When the bubble burst, those at the bottom bore the entire weight of the collapse. The human cost was devastating. Billions in savings vanished, and suicides reached record levels. Families who just yesterday considered themselves millionaires found themselves living in cardboard boxes in tent cities they sarcastically called Hoovervilles. President Franklin D. Roosevelt took office facing a monetary death spiral. Because the dollar was tied to gold, the government was restricted from printing the money needed to fight deflation and restart the economy. In 1933, Roosevelt signed an executive order requiring all citizens to surrender their gold coins and bars to the government at a fixed price. This was a desperate move to regain control over the nation's currency. Breaking the link to gold allowed the government to increase the money supply and artificially inflate prices. While this devalued the dollar, it gave the Treasury the liquidity needed to stabilize the banking system and end the deflationary cycle. This 1933 mandate concentrated immense financial leverage in the hands of the executive branch. It marked a permanent shift away from the classic gold standard, prioritizing the state's ability to manage the dollar's value over the individual's right to hold physical wealth. Nearly a century later, Charles Mitchell's blueprint has been resurrected and digitized. Modern trading apps offer the same allure of democratized finance, using gamified interfaces to encourage zero-commission trading for a new generation. The stock craze of the 1920s mirrors today's investment in cryptocurrencies and meme stocks. These markets are often driven by the same cheap loans and promises of easy wealth that lured workers into the 1929 market. Current margin debt has reached record levels, hitting $900 billion. The mathematical fragility that triggered the Great Depression is active once again, with millions of people betting their future on borrowed money. Behind every promise to democratize finance lies a systemic trap. History suggests that when institutions make it easy for the uneducated to gamble with debt, it is a precursor to a cycle designed to extract wealth and shift risk onto those who can least afford it. On October 24, 1929, the American stock market vaporized $14 billion in just 6 hours. That single-day loss wiped out more wealth than the entire Canadian economy was worth at the time. Traders panicked, dumping 13 million shares onto the market. The sheer volume of sell orders was so intense that the physical phone lines and mechanical ticker tape machines jammed, completely cutting off the trading floor from the outside world. The architect behind this collapse was one man. Charles Mitchell was the president of National City Bank, and the press affectionately called him Sunshine Charlie. He didn't set out to orchestrate a financial disaster. His stated goal was to take the exclusive wealth of Wall Street and hand it directly to the working class. In the 1920s, the United States was experiencing a massive industrial expansion. New factories, like the Ford assembly lines, were churning out physical goods, employing thousands of workers and building a robust middle class. But the stock market was a private club for the elite. Less than 1% of the American population owned corporate equities. Ordinary citizens kept their money in standard savings accounts or bought low-yield bonds. Mitchell saw an untapped resource. He created a subsidiary of National City Bank, specifically to sell corporate stocks to ordinary Americans, right inside their local bank branches. He trained a nationwide fleet of salesmen, dubbed dream merchants, in the psychology of persuasion. When ordinary workers walked in to deposit paychecks, these salesmen pitched them a piece of the American dream. Why should only the wealthy profit? Millions of regular people bought in. But flooding a closed financial system with retail capital creates extreme volatility. The market was now flush with new money from people who did not understand the mathematical risks-taking. Mitchell popularized margin trading. Buy $1,000 of stock using $100 cash and $900 borrowed. A 20% growth doubles your initial stake. But leverage works in reverse. A 50% drop wipes out your cash, leaving you owing $400. Blind to this risk, the public went all in. Between 1925 and 1929, the volume of margin loans skyrocketed by 425. This triggered the first fatal chain reaction. Banks issued margin calls, demanding immediate cash to cover falling stock values. When broke retail investors couldn't pay, banks forcefully sold off their shares, driving prices lower. With stock values plummeting, the underlying collateral for billions in loans evaporated. Banks immediately froze all new lending. Starved of cash, the financial institutions themselves began to collapse, leaving desperate depositors locked out of their own savings. The paper wealth vanished, leaving a real physical toll. Millions lost their jobs and their homes. Families were forced into sprawling cardboard tent cities that became bitterly known as Hoovervilles. Built on a foundation of borrowed money, a localized stock market correction quickly snowballed into a total macroeconomic collapse. The government searched for someone to blame. Mitchell was forced to resign in disgrace and face trial for tax evasion. When called before a congressional committee in 1933, he expressed no remorse, insisting he only wanted to give people the opportunity to get rich. To ensure bankers could never again gamble with depositors' money, Congress passed the Glass-Steagall Act. This legislation strictly separated commercial banking, where regular people keep their savings, from high-risk investment banking. They also created the Securities and Exchange Commission to police the market. But regulation wasn't enough to stop the bleeding. In April 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt signed an executive order that forced American citizens to surrender their privately owned gold to the federal government. As long as dollars were backed by physical metal, the government was restricted in how much currency it could print. By forcing the public to surrender their gold, the state was able to issue fiat currency, money backed entirely by government decree, to aggressively expand the money supply and combat severe deflation. The crash prompted the state to seize 3,600 tons of private gold and split the banking industry in two, stripping commercial lenders of their ability to gamble with the public's savings. Nearly a century later, the exact same mechanics are operating at a much larger scale. Today, 50 million Americans trade stocks through smartphone apps that use the very same democratized finance rhetoric Mitchell invented. This chart exposes the alarming scale of modern margin borrowing. Today, retail margin debt has completely eclipsed adjusted 1929 levels, reaching a towering $900 billion. The sheer volume of leveraged capital in the system currently poses a massive systemic risk. A new generation is pouring borrowed money into highly volatile assets, like cryptocurrencies and meme stocks. They are driven by a widespread belief that modern technology somehow makes the market immune to a catastrophic crash. Charles Mitchell's story serves as a warning that when the tools of high-risk speculation are marketed as simple retail opportunities, the resulting debt can quickly overwhelm the people it was promised to enrich. To uncover the hidden mechanics of the global economy, like this video and subscribe to Dollar Logic USA.